Just right before we get the video started, I want to talk to you guys about patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. If you go there right now, I am doing a free trial. You could sign up risk-free. We're coming off a win last night at LFA 174 to kick off the year, so looking to start the year with a bang and do great for the entire year. We have 9 bets tonight for UFC Fight Night Ankalaev versus Walker. Like I said, if you want to go over right now, you could sign up. You could check it out for free. So you can get access to those 9 bets for free. Make yourself some money tonight. And I already have a bet up there for UFC 297. I'm going to be putting out a full card breakdown and predictions video on Patreon early, either tonight or tomorrow for UFC 297. And then the official video is going to be out on Monday on the channel. So you will have early access to UFC 297 predictions. I already have a bet for UFC 297 available on Patreon as well, and I'm going to add a couple more later on today and tomorrow. So definitely go over to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. You're getting access to one of the top 20 non-reckless bettors on Bet MMA Tips. You're getting access to someone that has had 7 years in a row of tracked success where I have not lost money in any year. And I think that I give a lot of value in terms of just written breakdowns, videos, and all the information that I do give. So definitely appreciate everyone that's already over there. Appreciate everyone that supports the channel. And if you're not at patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru, go over, sign up, help the channel, get yourself a free, risk-free opportunity to check it out and make yourself some money. So you won't regret it, and go check it out. Yo, what's up, guys? Going to do a quick little betting breakdown here before the fights, and just getting right into it. Most confident picks regardless of odds. Some people like to see that, then kind of create a parlay off that. So right here I got it. I would say for me the top 3 are pretty safe for me. Like Gene Silva, Tom Nolan, Joshua Van. I'm pretty confident they're all going to get the job done. So that's kind of how I would go with if I wanted to parlay them. But you want to do a PRP or something like that. That's the list of confidence from top to bottom that I do have on all the fighters. But let's get into these props. Let's talk about the props for every fight. And some of these fights, I do have bets on certain props. Some of them I don't. But I'm going to give you guys my favorite prop bets for every fight, just basically to give you guys something to bet on if you do want to bet on these fights. But yeah, the first fight of the night, Josh Van versus Felipe Bunez. I would say my 2 favorite plays on that that fight would either be Josh Van to win in round 3, which is plus 600, and if you look at the plus 600, I'm using Bet Online odds here. I think you can get him for a lot better odds at different books here. Like Josh Van to win in round 3 is plus 800 on Jazz, and plus 747 on my bookie. So you can go get a better price on that, but I just feel like Bunez does get a little bit tired, but early on I think Van's going to start slow. I think he's going to respect the takedown. So if he does finish, I think it'll be later on, and if he starts a little bit too slow, it'll probably be a decision. So by decision, plus 200, or him to win in round 3, plus 600. I think those are kind of my 2 favorite plays on that fight right there. But moving on for this next fight, we got Tom Nolan taking on Nicholas Mota. And I would just say Tom Nolan to win by KO TKO. We all know about Nicholas Mota's chin. It's not very good. And ultimately, I feel like Nolan, he might not be like an extremely high-level striker yet. He's not that experienced yet. But I think he has enough to take on Mota pretty easily. And I think he can knock him out. And I also feel as if it's going to happen around 75 to 80% of the time. So there's still a little bit of value on that number, if you ask me. I know right now it's at like 66% implied value, which is pretty high for someone to get a knockout. But Nolan, all of his finished victories are knockouts. I don't see Mota lasting 15 minutes with this guy. I don't think he's going to catch a submission on him. So I feel like the knockout is definitely going to materialize eventually. I just don't trust Mota's chin. So I think that Tom Nolan by knockout, even at minus 190, has value there. And moving on here, we got Gene Silva taking on Weston Wilson. And I see some people, they're kind of saying they like the over on this fight. But I just don't agree with that. I mean, personally, you look at Weston Wilson's last 11 fights. All 11 fights have ended in the first round. So for me, that's the indication that he goes in there, kill or be killed, and his defense just isn't tight enough, in my opinion, to be in the UFC. I think that he's going to start getting hit. He's going to start getting knocked out at this level of competition. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. So Silva winning by KO TKO at minus 200. And for Silva to win in the first round, I think those are kind of my two favorite plays there. And I think Silva's going to get it done by knockout. I was thinking maybe there's an opportunity that he could catch the submission on Wilson, but you look at Silva's record, he doesn't have many submission wins, or if any. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember exactly, but that just leads me to believe that Weston Wilson's going to get knocked out. I think that Gene Silva's going to find that shit and get him out of there. So give me Gene Silva to get that first round knockout. And moving along here, we got Farid Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus. This one, I feel like there's not a lot of props at a lot of value, and Farid Basharat took in a lot of money. I mean, the guy earlier in the week, he was like minus 200, minus 205, minus 207. Now he's all the way at minus 280. But I feel like him by submission is really the only thing that I see a lot of value in. I think that a submission is viable there for Basharat. And if you're looking at a plus 400 number, I don't think that's bad. So Basharat via submission, I think, is a decent stab if you want to take a risk there on that Farid Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus fight. And ultimately, I do think Basharat's going to get the job done in that one. But moving on here, we got Marcus McGee taking on Gaston Bolanos. And this fight, I think that Bolanos' money line still has a little bit of value, like I was telling you guys earlier in the week. But like I said, I mean, money has kept coming in on Bolanos. It's getting a little bit closer to that plus 155-ish number that I said Bolanos probably rightfully deserved to be at, where earlier he was close to plus 300. So I think that it's getting more appropriately aligned money line-wise. But if I'm looking at the fight, I think that I would say McGee wins by submission or Bolanos wins by KO TKO as the props. Because personally, I think that Bolanos is going to get the win, and I think he could get the knockout. So plus 450 isn't bad. And then you got McGee by submission just because that's the clear and obvious hole inside Bolanos' game is his submission defense. I don't think McGee's going to be able to knock him out. I don't think Bolanos has ever been knocked out from my research. So if McGee wins, I think he's going to show some grappling that he hasn't shown in previous fights. But personally, I feel like Bolanos is the value side on that fight. And Bolanos by KO is probably the way that I would go with it, or just Bolanos money line. But this next fight, Preston Parsons versus Matthew Semelsberger. I would say Parsons via decision would be the play that I would go with. I think that as long as he can hit takedowns, he's going to start to wear on Semelsberger and get him into those later rounds, be able to start holding him down. I don't see him finishing Semelsberger, but I think that he can hold him down. But Semelsberger is a guy with elite power, so I think that if you're on that Semelsberger side, you got to go with the knockout. I don't think he's going to be able to win a decision. I don't see him being able to win minutes long-term in this fight because I think he just can't stop the takedown, is not going to be as active and aggressive as Preston Parsons. So if you're on Semelsberger, I think him winning by knockout is really the only way to go with it. And so, yeah, I feel like if you're on the side of Parsons, maybe target those overs, target Parsons by decision. But if you're on the side of Semelsberger, then go with the knockout for Semelsberger. So that's kind of what I think about that one. This next fight here, we got Andrei Arlovski. He's taking on Waldo Cortez Acosta. Gigantic favorite here in Costa. And ultimately, I mean, you look at Andrei Arlovski, I think that if this fight goes the distance, it's going to be very competitive. So if you think this fight's going to go over, you think this fight's going to potentially go to decision, bet on Arlovski, man. I mean, you go to plus 525. You look at Arlovski and his recent decisions, he's been winning the large majority of them. When he loses, he gets finished. And most of the time when Arlovski loses, he's getting finished in that first round. So I feel like Waldo Cortez Acosta, he's going to go out there and probably find that chin, get him out of there, be too aggressive, be too athletic, too fast. I think some of the advantages that Arlovski has, like foot speed, like overall athleticism against these other heavyweights, he doesn't really have it against Acosta. And I feel like Acosta's going to be able to find that chin. So Acosta to win by knockout or inside the distance at minus 200, I think is a little safer than the knockout. I mean, you're only getting minus 180 to minus 200, which is really very little value loss. And there is a potential that he could win via submission with a club and sub use. Arlovsky does have a tendency to give his neck, so that's another prop that if you want to take a risk, I don't think it's a horrible bet. Acosta wins via submission at plus 1200, but ultimately my favorite plays would be the under 1.5 rounds, which is still plus money right now. I think that that's a pretty decent bet. Ultimately, I think that if you're on the Acosta side, you're looking at a minus 750. I mean, the bookies think he's going to go in there and run through the guy, so plus 110 on the under 7.5 minutes, I think is pretty good. And then Cortez Acosta to win inside the distance as well, like I said. So kind of what I'm thinking in that fight, and I think that Cortez Acosta is going to be able to get Arlovsky out of there like Dontel Mays did and like the more recent opponents of Arlovsky. And continuing on through the card, we got Bruno Ferreira taking on Phil Hawes. And man, this is a tough one. I mean, I think Phil Hawes is the better fighter, but he just has a glass chin, so untrustworthy, especially against a puncher. So with both these guys having kind of glass cannon type of things, I mean, Ferreira got knocked out in his last fight too. It's hard to trust either guy for me, so I just kind of going to go with the under 1.5 rounds. I would be really surprised if this went over. I feel like both these guys are going to go out there and go for that knockout, and someone's probably going to get KO'd in the first round. So I think that's what's going to happen, and I'm going to go with Ferreira to get that first round knockout. But for me, the under would be kind of my favorite prop on that card. It's something that I think would be parlayable there. And moving on, we got Mario Batista versus Ricky Simone. This fight I don't have a great read on, so I'm not super invested in it. But if I'm looking at the props, I would say I think that Simone's going to win via decision. Batista, to me, hasn't shown indication of being not durable guy. I think that he's going to be pumped up for this fight too, so I think that he's going to have his defensive grappling and on point. I think if Ricky Simone lands a big punch, he'll be able to survive. So I like this one to go over. I think over 2.5 rounds at minus 200. There's a little juice, but I think that there's some decent value there. And then Simone wins via decision, and Simone to get 3+ takedowns. I think him to get 3 takedowns is pretty much a lock. So if you have those odds, I think that's a good bet there. And then him to win by decision plus 140. I just think that's kind of what's going to happen. So you're getting plus money. I don't think it's the worst bet. I don't think it's the best bet, but I think that that's kind of what I would go with if I did bet that fight. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking there. And continuing on, we got Jim Miller. He's taking on Gabriel Benitez. Another fight where Jim Miller's taking pretty significant amount of money. He's over a plus or minus 150 now, so decent favorite at this point. And I think it's warranted because I do think that Jim Miller is the better fighter everywhere, and I think he's the more dangerous fighter. Both these guys are older. Both these guys have taken damage. Not impressed by either guy's real cardio or anything like that. So I think that some of the issues that Miller has against these younger guys or these fighters that he's lost to, Benitez doesn't really have that element. And I think that this fight's definitely not going to go the distance. So at minus 260, I think that that's pretty good odds. I don't see this fight going all 3 rounds. I think that Miller's going to get him out of there in the first round. Honestly, I think that's what's going to happen in my opinion. So you look at Miller to win in round 1, plus 275, plus 325. I think that's a decent play there. And then I also think the under 1.5 rounds where you could get plus money also isn't bad either. So I feel like Jim Miller is going to get the job done. He's going to get Gabriel Benitez out of there. If you look at all his wins recently, they're all inside the distance. So if he wins, he's probably going to finish, and I think Jim Miller is going to win. So that's what I'm leading with there. And then finally, we got the main event. We got Magomed Ankalaev taking on Johnny Walker. And I was telling you guys earlier in the week, I think the overs have value on this fight. And the fight goes to decision was at earlier in the week plus 600 when it opened. Now it's plus 325. So an insane amount of money came in on that. And, at this point, I don't think there's as much value as there was previously. Even more value has come in since I wrote it down. I mean, last night it was plus 350. Now you see it at plus 325. So the line movement kind of got crushed on that one, but that's still what I would go with, or at least the over 1.5 rounds at minus 175. That got killed too. So A lot of these props kind of got crushed on this fight card, or on this fight. But Ankalaev, what's Ankalaev to win via decision? What, plus 450? I mean, once again, not great. But I just think Ankalaev's going to draw this one out. It's going to be a boring kind of fight at certain portions of it. Ankalaev's going to get the job done. Walker is a live underdog at plus 400. I mean, if I'm just looking at the money line, I think Walker has a lot of value. But Walker, to me, is kind of an untrustworthy guy, someone that I don't like betting on. So I think Ankalaev drawing it out and going longer is kind of what I think probably is the best thing to go with, personally. So that's how I would target this fight. But there you have it, guys. And if I did give you guys a parlay on prop parlay, I would say to go with Miller Benitez fight ends inside the distance, which is minus 260 now. Haas for under 1.5 rounds at minus 249, and Cortez to win inside the distance at minus 200. You can get a nice close to plus 200 parlay off that. Bet half a unit on it and see if you can make yourself some money. But thanks for watching, guys. Full parlay and our full prop breakdown for this fight card. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you guys later.